Organizing and displaying data. Our objective is to organize data in tables and graphs, as well as choose a table or graph to display data. Who uses this? Nutritionists can display health information about food in bar graphs. Let's start with a few vocabulary words. A bar graph is a graph that displays data with vertical or horizontal bars. A line graph is a graph that displays data using line segments. A circle graph shows parts of a whole. So when to use what graph? You use a bar graph when comparing categories, a line graph for change over a period of time, and a circle graph for parts of a whole, like percentages. So let's start by reading and interpreting bar graphs. We're going to use the graph to answer each question. But let's take a minute and notice what a bar graph has. This time it has horizontal bars. It has a title. It's labeled each of its axes. And each bar is labeled in a bar graph. So you don't label like in between segments or lines. It's this bar is labeled bread. This bar is labeled ham. And then as far as it goes out, so like ham has 6 grams of fat. Alright, so using that knowledge, which ingredient contains the most fat? Well, the longest bar we have here is mayonnaise, so that would be mayonnaise, or the one that contains the most fat. So now, how many more grams of fat are in ham than in turkey? So we're comparing ham and turkey. Well, there are 6 grams of fat in ham, and there are 3 grams of fat in turkey. So therefore, 6 minus 3 gives us 3. Now let's look at the next one. How many total fat grams are in this sandwich? So to figure that out, we're going to add each of our values together. So 1 for the bread, so 1 plus 6 plus 3 plus 9 plus 11. When we add all those numbers together, we end up with 30. So the sandwich has a total of 30 grams of fat. So now we have our last question. What percent of the total grams in this sandwich, or fat grams in this sandwich, are from turkey? So if the total grams we end up with is 30, and turkey is 3, to figure out this one here, we're going to do 3 out of 30, because 3 out of the 30 total grams are from turkey. And if we simplify this into a percent, 3 divided by 30 gives us 10%. Now let's move on to reading and interpreting double bar graphs. So a double bar graph still has a title, the axes are still labeled. The difference is there are 2 bars instead of 1 for each category. In this case, the category is years. The left side, the red, is football, and the right represents basketball. So, in which year did State College have the greatest average attendance for basketball? So, find the tallest orange bar, because orange is for basketball. Well, that would be in the year 2003. Alright, so now let's move on to the next question. On average, how many more people attended a football game than a basketball game in 2001? So you're going to look at your 2001 category, and you're going to compare the football bar to the basketball bar. And in this case, we have 20,000 minus 13,000. In case you're wondering, it looks like it was just a 20 and a 13, right? Well, if you look, it says average attendance per game in thousands, which means each of these numbers represents thousands. So this would be like 5,000, 10,000, 15,000. So when you're doing your calculations, you have to keep that in mind. So we have 20,000 minus 13,000, which gives us 7,000. So now let's practice reading and interpreting line graphs. We're going to use the graph to answer each question. Notice with a line graph, the axes are still labeled, there's still a title, and then based on the definition, it's made up of line segments, hence the word line graph, and our x-axis, this horizontal axis here, is labeled with time because a line graph is a graph over time. So at what time was the temperature the warmest? So you're going to follow your graph and look for when it was the warmest. So it was at 4 o'clock p.m. Alright, so now during which 4-hour time period did the temperature increase the most? So at this time, you're going to look for your steepest line segment, because that's when it will have increased the most. So from 8 o'clock a.m. to noon. 8 o'clock to noon has the steepest line segment. So let's step it up and look at reading and interpreting double line graphs. Notice how we still have a title. We have our x and y axis labeled. It's a line graph, so it's talking about stuff that changes over time. And then the blue represents airline A, and the purple represents airline B. So your two different categories, if you will, that you're looking at. So, in which month or months did airline B charge more than airline A? So we want to see where the purple is above your blue. So in this case, we have April. For one of them, and does it happen again? Yep, it happens again in September. That's when the airline B has charged more than airline A. So now, during which month or months did the airlines charge the same fare? So that would be when they line up perfectly. So right now, purple's below, it's above, and here we go. It's the same for May. But does it happen at any other time interval? Nope. So therefore, it's just May. So now let's practice reading and interpreting circle graphs. In a circle graph, we don't have an x and y axis to label because it's a circle, but it still has a title, and then each of its wedges are labeled. So, if we look at our questions, which two fruits together make up half of the fruit salad? Well, the two fruits together that make up half of it would be bananas and strawberries. So now, which fruit is used more than any other? So which one has the largest wedge? Well, in this case, it would be cantaloupe. Well, since cantaloupe has the largest amount of fruit within this salad, for fun, what percent of the fruit salad is cantaloupe? So to do this, we want to add up the total cups of everything. So 2 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1/2 plus 2 1/2. And that will give us our total cups. So when we add that together, we end up with 8 total cups. All right, but how much of that was cantaloupe? Well, 2 1/2 was cantaloupe. So we're going to take our 2 1/2 and divide that by 8. And when we do, we end up with 0.3125. So it's 31.25%, so 31.25% of the fruit salad is cantaloupe. So now that we've analyzed different types of graph, now let's try deciding which type of graph would best represent the data described. So, attendance at 5 different carnivals during the same year. Well, in this case, it would be a bar graph. All right, so now let's look at attendance at a carnival by age group as it relates to total attendance. Well, since you're looking at individual pieces and different groups relating to a total, you have a part related to a total, so therefore that's going to be a circle graph. And then we have attendance at a carnival each year over a 10-year period. So you're talking about something over time, and it's a single carnival. So therefore, that would be a line graph. And this last one, attendance at 2 different carnivals each year over a 10-year period. So this one's very similar to the one we just did, only we're analyzing 2 different carnivals. So it's still over time, but because it's 2, it's going to be a double line graph. And that ends our video lesson on organizing and displaying data.